Welcome back to the weekend. I'm Jonathan Capehart with Jackie Alemany and Eugene Daniels. Grab that second cup of coffee because, as usual, we've got a lot more show to get to. Starting with Senator Bill Cassidy's stunning loss last night in Louisiana after President Trump sought revenge against him for his, quote, disloyalty. All eyes are on Kentucky, where Trump is trying to unseat another top Republican critic, Congressman Thomas Massie. We'll talk to political reporters from 4 of those states about what to watch for. Plus, renovator-in-chief. Trump continues to dismiss the ballooning price of pet projects. And just last night, funding for one of those projects was delivered a significant blow. And later, you won't want to miss our interviews with New Jersey Senator Cory Booker and Alabama Congresswoman Terry Sewell, who both attended yesterday's rally in the historic city of Montgomery to fight for voting rights. But we begin this hour with last night's major election upset in the Louisiana U.S. Senate primary, where 2-term Republican Senator Bill Cassidy failed to make the runoff. Cassidy has long been a target for President Trump ever since he voted to impeach Trump after the January 6th insurrection. He's also the first sitting senator to lose a primary since 2012, a sign of Trump's dominance over the GOP. That grip could be on display again on Tuesday when 6 more states hold primaries, with some big races that we will be watching in Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Oregon, Idaho, and Alabama. Joining us now to discuss some of those primaries are Greg Bluestein, chief political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and MSNOW political contributor and co-host of the Politically Georgia podcast, Whitney Downard, reporter for the Pennsylvania Capital Star, McKenna Horsley, politics reporter for the Kentucky Lantern, and Anna Barrett, state government reporter for the Alabama Reflector. Whitney, McKenna, and Anna also join us through our Whitney, McKenna, and Anna join us through our partnership with the State's Newsroom, the nation's largest state-focused nonprofit news organization. McKenna, I'm coming to you first because we're going to go to Kentucky. Let me show you. Oh, this was at 12:40 a.m. I think this is a Truth Social attack on Tom Massie. I'm just going to read some of it. Tom Massie of Kentucky, the worst and most unreliable Republican congressman in the history of our country, is an even bigger insult to our nation than Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who suffered an unprecedented loss tonight by not even being allowed to run in the Republican primary, blah, blah, blah. Tom Massie, a major sleazebag, is even worse. Kentucky, get this, all caps, loser out of politics in Tuesday's election. McKenna, will the people of Kentucky do to Congressman Massie what the people of Louisiana did last night to Senator Cassidy?
Yes, that's definitely the question that's on the minds of a lot of Kentucky voters, especially in that 4th congressional district. I would say it's shaping up to be a very close race here on the ground, especially tightening over the last week. His challenger, Ed Galrine, is from kind of the western part of the district, where Massie is from that eastern part. So we're seeing those 2 regions being kind of pitted together towards this. But I do definitely think that this is shaping up to be a referendum on, do these voters want Thomas Massie or do they not? And rather than a choice between the 2 candidates and their platforms.
Greg, let's hopscotch to Georgia quickly. I know we are not in the prediction business, and we try not to engage in that on the show too much, but when you are looking at the Senate race, this is obviously a race against John Ossoff, Mike Collins against John Ossoff, that Republicans are hoping to potentially pick up. What is the state of play in that race right now?
Yeah, well, Mike Collins is the Republican frontrunner, but he's going against Buddy Carter, another congressman, and Derek Dooley, a former football coach, backed by Governor Brian Kemp. So right now, you know, it's looking like it's going to be Mike Collins versus either of those 2 opponents in a potential June runoff. And the question here is what Governor Kemp's clout will look like, because the governor has gone all in for Derek Dooley. He's campaigned all over the state the last month or so. It's like a tag team special between the two of them. And the governor says only an outsider can hope to beat Jon Ossoff, that basically another congressman like Mike Collins or Buddy Carter has no chance against the Democratic incumbent. That's how strong Republicans see Jon Ossoff's chances in November are right now.
Is that an assessment that you agree with?
It looks like, look, I mean, according to AJC polls, Jon Ossoff has high approval ratings, of course, not just from Democrats, but also the independent swing voters who will help decide this election. In Georgia, you've got to have, as a Democrat, you've got to have a significant number of Trump voters to back you. And so Republicans have been squeamish here literally for months, not just recently, but for months about Jon Ossoff's chances, because he's at once vulnerable. He's the only Democratic incumbent running for another term in a state Trump won, but also he's formidable. He's the sort of paradox politically.
Anna Barrett, let's go to Alabama. I lived there for exactly 1 year as a kid. I need you to help me understand. I need you to help me understand something, Anna. The Secretary of State in Alabama, Wes Allen, this is from AL.com, said that the primary next week is still on, but votes won't count in 4 districts. They will be voided after. How this party, how the Secretary of State thinks about their votes. What have you heard?
So the situation in the special primary in 4 congressional districts, 1, 2, 6, and 7, is a byproduct of the Calais decision, in which we went into a special session to pass legislation setting up that special primary in case the Supreme Court told us that we could revert to our legislature passed map in 2023 that a federal court ruled was racially discriminatory twice. And voters should still, and I want to be so clear about this, voters should still fill out their ballot top to bottom, even in congressional districts 1, 2, 6, and 7, if that is where they live. Even though we have those special primaries in August, because that litigation is not over. The Supreme Court order just sent it back to the federal court here in Alabama to reconsider it under Calais. So it's not over, per se.
Oh, that's
good to know. People in Alabama, I hope you're watching. They got facts for you.
Vote. Still vote. 1, 2, 6, and 7 in Alabama. Let's go. Whitney Downard in Pennsylvania. What are the bellwether districts to watch?
Yeah, so we really have 4 districts here that Democrats are hoping to flip from Republicans in November, and 3 of those have primaries on Tuesday. Outside of the Philly suburbs, we've got the 1st district, then we've also got the 7th in Lehigh Valley, and the 10th here in Harrisburg. And those are really the races we're going to be watching pretty closely. To see who emerges as the Democratic front runner. It's really going to be a test of Governor Josh Shapiro's power within the party, because he has kind of handpicked somebody in each of those races that he really wants to win and set him up for success for potential future political aspirations.
You know, Whitney, I want a scarf.
Right.
Later, I see all that yarn behind you.
Exactly.
Sorry,
to get into it. No, go ahead. You're correct. No, we ask for what we want. Closed mouths don't get fed. I want to go to each of you really quickly in the time that we have left, and just as succinctly as you possibly can, what's the one thing, the one issue that is moving the voters of your state that you think folks like us on the national level might be missing? I'll start with you, Greg.
Yeah, well, of course, affordability, the economy is number one, but we're also watching the impact of the 2020 election here in Georgia and Trump's attempt to overturn his defeat to Joe Biden, because that is still coloring a lot of these races, Democrats and Republicans. Democrats, of course, trying to safeguard against another attempt to overturn the election. Republicans, to varying degrees, are still fighting, relitigating that election. So I think that's going to play a big role in our Tuesday primary.
Anna, what about in Alabama?
Affordability is a big one. Our utility bills are higher than anywhere in the Southeast. That was a big issue during the legislative session, but also this voting rights discussion that's been happening over the last few weeks. I mean, as you mentioned over right before our segment, there were over 5,000 people here yesterday fighting for voting rights, just like they were 60 years ago.
McKenna, the voters in Kentucky?
Yes, I think this is definitely a referendum on the future of the Republican Party, both here in Kentucky and at the national level. This 4th congressional district in northern Kentucky, national level, this 4th congressional district in northern Kentucky has really become a libertarian stronghold, and we see that reflected throughout Massey's time in Congress, but also here at the state house level. A lot of libertarian types have defeated establishment type Republicans in the state house. So I think this is going to be a referendum on what the future of the party will be moving forward.
Winnie, we'll let you have the last word before you get started on those scarves.
Affordability is really big here too. People are very concerned about data centers. Our governor has kind of thrown his support behind data centers, but also wants to pursue a little bit more transparency over some of the associated costs. And so that is something that a lot of voters have been worried about because just like Alabama, we have very high utility prices.
Greg Bluestein, Whitney Downard, McKenna Horsley, and Anna Barrett, thank you all so much for joining us, and good luck to you as you cover the rest of the midterms. I know it's exhausting. Coming up after the break, how the renovator-in-chief, Donald Trump, is continuing to blow past construction budgets, timelines, and his frenzy to remake Washington, D.C. in his gold-plated image, even as everyday Americans struggle to put basic necessities on their family's kitchen table. You're watching The Weekend.
Stay up to date on the biggest issues of the day with the MS Now daily newsletter. Each morning, you'll get analysis by experts you trust, video highlights from your favorite shows, updates on our latest podcasts and election coverage, plus written perspectives from the newsmakers themselves. Sign up for MS Now Daily at ms.now.
Donald Trump is again defending the cost of his ever-expanding episode of Extreme Makeover Washington, D.C. edition starring your tax dollars. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, Trump blamed his predecessors for failing to fix the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool that he keeps calling a pond, and said he, quote, decided to go to a much higher level of repair using industrial strength materials, which will give a longer life and a better look. Yes, the renovation, which Trump originally claimed last month would cost around $2 million, has skyrocketed to $13 million. But of course, that's not all. Trump's White House ballroom was originally projected to cost $200 million when he unveiled the project last summer. And he said a lot. It will be entirely privately funded and financed. Now, Trump himself said the price tag is approaching $400 million. The Republicans in Congress are weighing an additional $220 million of your money for security upgrades. But that funding has hit a roadblock with the Senate parliamentarian ruling that the plan to include it in an immigration enforcement bill failed to meet procedural rules. And Trump's spending doesn't appear to be stopping there. Surveyors have begun work on Trump's proposed 250-foot triumphal arch alongside a newly announced sculpture garden tied to America's 250th anniversary. All of it comes after Trump threatened to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell over rising renovation costs at the Federal Reserve headquarters, overruns driven in large part by Trump's own tariffs. And even then, the increases at the Fed amount to only a fraction of the budget growth attached to Trump's own Washington building spree. When MS Now's White House reporter Kayla Gardner pointed out that contradiction, here's how Donald Trump responded.
We have a ballroom that's under budget. It's going up right here. I've doubled the size of it because we obviously need that. And we're right now on budget, under budget, and ahead of schedule. I doubled the size of it, you dumb person. It's double the size. You are not a smart person.
Before we get into the cost, once again, Donald Trump attacking a black woman for doing her damn job. And we have checked on Kayla. She's doing just fine.
She's fine. She's fine. Can we put up that picture of the reflecting pool? that we had from that story in the intro, because when you look at it, it looks like someone hired a really bad house painter, and they're doing it all wrong. I mean, to me, it's look at that. That's state-sanctioned graffiti. The hell is that? And why mess with the reflecting pool? This is, the man is exhausting on a policy level, but when it comes to these vanity projects, it's, we're turning into Vegas. No shade on Vegas, but
it was very shady toward
okay,
Vegas.
maybe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I mean, how much gold and glitz and everything can we have to put up with?
You've been to Trump Tower.
I have been to Trump Tower.
So
yes,
you know how far he can go.
Yes, I know how far he can go. The only thing that's gold that I agree with that he's doing are those two statues at the end of Memorial Bridge on the Lincoln Memorial side, statues that were gifted to the United States by Italy, and they were gold. Now they're being refurbished, and they're going to be goldy gold by the time they're done.
The president's Pinterest account and where he's getting some of this
his mood board,
interior decor inspo. I, for one, have been inspired by the coin gluing and have started to consider places around my house I can
put your own challenge.
Do you have a challenge?
You have a challenge?
No, I'm not going to use a challenge coin, but buttons. There are some other creative ways.
I'm sure Walter would love ripping those off and throwing them right in his mouth. Let's play some sound from Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado pressing the Interior Secretary about the approval for this reflecting pool.
Who picked this company? Because President Trump, a few months ago, in a New York Times article said, I have a guy who's unbelievable at doing swimming. Contract is reserved for situations where, quote, any delay would cause serious injury to the government.
We had 19 fountains across the city that didn't work.
That's the serious injury to the government?
Well, yes, water. Got to have water. The fountains have to work. That's obviously a serious injury to the government.
Yeah, I mean, I also think when you take a step back, the big takeaway here is this is a president outside of his proclivity for building and wanting these big projects, is someone who is deeply concerned about his legacy and is therefore trying to build it himself.
He's trying to cement it before. Look, when memorials are built to presidents, it's done after they're long out of office and usually long after they're dead, when history has had an opportunity to assess their impact on the country, and then the nation decides to memorialize them. This dude is decided, I've already written about this, that he knows history is not going to treat him or is not going to judge him fairly, to his mind, and it's not going to judge him well. And so he wants to put his stamp on this city in particular so that we can never forget him. And you know what? You succeeded at that.
We will not. One last thing. That ballroom that is now apparently could be funded by your tax dollars. He truthed, I don't know, posted on Truth on Friday. China has a ballroom and so should the USA. It's under construction ahead of schedule, will be the finest facility of its kind anywhere in the USA. The man I am walking with is President Xi of China and one of the world's greatest leaders, President Donald J. Trump. This is Mr. I'm going to be tough on China. Jack.
All that money. Where's the money coming from?
You, child.
Us.
If Trump circles back with those private donors he had alleged were going to be footing the bill. But still to come, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker on the major voting rights rally he attended yesterday, and Trump's past week of so-called diplomacy in China. We're watching the weekends from Democracy. Yesterday, citizens mobilized for voting rights demonstrations across the South in the wake of the Supreme Court's gutting of the Voting Rights Act, as Republican-led states raced to redraw congressional maps. Senator Cory Booker was among the Democratic lawmakers joining demonstrators for a rally in Montgomery, Alabama. Joining us now is Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, a member of the Senate Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Booker, thanks for joining us this morning. You spoke yesterday at the rally in Montgomery, Alabama. Talk to us a little bit about what your message was and what you think is important for Americans across the country to understand about this moment right now.
Well, for all Americans, Alabama is sacred soil. So much of our democracy came of age there before the sacrifices of martyrs, before Fred Shuttlesworth and Martin Luther King and so many other heroes of Alabama campaigns. we did not have a complete democracy. Blacks were prevented from voting for, by all kind of means, from terrorism and lynching all the way to legislators making it difficult for blacks to vote. And now we have a Supreme Court, 6 members, who are sending us back to that long, almost century where black political leadership and black electoral fairness was not represented in the House of Representatives. And we're going to see now, with surgical-like precision, state house after state house in southern states, them writing maps to try to eviscerate black leadership. So I was there because my roots go back to the South. I was there because I owe a debt that I could never pay back. But the only way we as Americans who've enjoyed the benefits of democracy to prove worthy of the legacy we've inherited is for us to continue the struggle to protect democracy and advance it so that our children and grandchildren have a nation that is still secure and still free and still has fair elections.
Senator, this attack on black political power, black representation, black voters has been going on since the ink dried when LBJ signed both the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. And so that means that the work that, Republicans and the right have been able to do is 61 years old. And I want to pull up a photo. There was a meeting on voting rights on Wednesday. It's a photo of you that I got from someone who joined virtually. And the reason I'm showing this photo, sir, is because what I heard that you said and what I heard that the kind of tenor of the meeting was that this is a moment to show urgency, that this is a moment to do things more creatively, to fight harder, to think differently than folks have been doing it in the past, and to work together differently. As you operate in this space, because you're going to be doing a lot of this, I imagine, how should black political leaders, black civics leaders, black civil rights leaders in this country be operating differently to meet the moment?
Well, one thing is we can't do what we have always done and expect things to change. We need to be creative like our ancestors were, from those creative young people at Greensboro, North Carolina, who did the first really ever modern sit-in, like the people in Birmingham did when they had children march against Bull Connor's fire hoses and his dogs. We have to think of creative leadership, things that are out of the ordinary, things that are different. And I want to really challenge one thing that you said. This is not just an assault on black leadership and representation. It's an assault on all of us. Every American should see and understand that when there's a threat to democracy anywhere, it's a threat to democracy everywhere. We all are inextricably tied together in this democracy. And as James Baldwin wrote when they arrested the great Angela Davis, he said, if they come for you in the morning, then they're going to come for me at night. That's the understanding we have to have. And so I'm already going to bring everything that I have in terms of my creativity and my energy and my effort going into these next 6 months where we have an election that's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about democratic forces against those who want to undermine our democracy. This is a movement now. It is a moral movement. And so whether it's crisscrossing the country and picking up at the last minute and going down to Alabama, or trying to find creative protests like the 25 hours that I did on the Senate floor, I want to try to make sure that all leaders are doing things different than they did before, because these are different times, different threats, different challenges to all Americans. And I want to know where you are. You will be counted. History will look back on where you stood. There was Plessy versus Ferguson. There was Korematsu. There was so many Supreme Court cases that challenged our democracy, and the people responded and they overcame. What did you do in the aftermath of Calais to show that you were for fair elections, fair representation, and a fair democracy?
Yeah, Senator, you were in Alabama yesterday. So was Melanie Campbell, who was on the show yesterday talking about everything we're talking about right now. And one thing she said was that the redistricting efforts that are happening throughout the South has awakened a sleeping giant. Do you agree with her? And if so, how will we see it? Will we see it in the American people, not just African Americans, but the American people rising up and blunting the impact of gerrymandering, or will we see it in House races, or will we see it more in statewide races, or is it too soon to tell?
It's too soon to tell, and I want everybody to understand that King said it so aptly, that change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. It must be carried in on the backs of people who are willing to do the work, to struggle and sacrifice for it. This is not a time to look around and say, oh, there might be a great blue wave building. This is a time to get out there and be one of those people that engineers, that generates the momentum that we need. Again, this is one of those moments. I've often wondered, would I have been one of those people to board a bus on a freedom ride knowing that the bus would be bombed and we would be beaten? Would I have been one of those people that joined the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge knowing that Alabama state troopers would tear gas us and pound us with billy clubs? Would I have been one of those people, those kids that stood in front of Bull Connor's dogs? Well, we don't have to ask anymore about what we would have done faced with those circumstances. We have, again, one of those moments where history is calling on us. Will you accept a nation that has these outrageously drawn maps that undermine representation, that undermine proportional representation, that undermine the freedom of the vote? If you want to accept a democracy like that, and by the way, Democrat and Republican, it's not fair that a Republican change that is having Democrats in Congress, because every Republican is on the record for voting in favor of partisan gerrymandering, and every Democrat voted against it. And so we have to take control of the House and the Senate so that we can pass fair voting maps for all of America and end this race to the bottom that will ultimately undermine our democracy and, in the case of African Americans, will desecrate the martyrs that died for the rights that we see the Supreme Court now eroding.
Real quickly, Senator, because we are out of time, but we want to talk to you about something else on the other side. But you've done television interviews with us, with me, over the years, and in those interviews, I've noticed that you're usually a joyful warrior, and I've noticed in the last few weeks your tone is somber. Am I to take from that you're concerned about not just the health of our democracy, but of the longevity of our democracy is very concerning to you?
My soul and my heart ache in a way I haven't felt in a long time. I'm here because people were willing to die for me, be beaten for me. I'm a descendant of slaves. I'm 4 generations from slavery. Everything, every step I take was paid for. And to watch people like John Lewis, who I knew personally, to watch their work and their sacrifice, the testimony to our democracy that they achieved, to be eroded, it makes my whole soul and heart ache. But I know lots of ethnic groups probably know this in America, lots of people, but black folk really know how to carry hurt and pain and wounds and scars, but also to know that joy is defiance, to know that hope is not a feeling that you get. Hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. So the joy I feel still, despite it all, no one gave to me, God gave to me, because my ancestors sang in church, even though they knew the terrors that were going on outside of that church. My ancestors lifted the spirits of others, even though there was every reason to surrender to despair. So I can hold those both in my heart at the same time, a defiant joy and a real deep depth of sorrow.
Senator Cory Booker reminding us that joy is defiance. He is also going to stick with us as we continue our conversation and shift a little bit more to politics and see his thoughts on his Republican colleague, Bill Cassidy, losing last night.